Hello there. In today's video we are going to be testing a panel of rawhide scale armor, as inspired by the people of the southern plains. The scales are made of cowhide, the lining is buffalo leather. In making this panel I think I've stumbled across how the rawhide should be prepared. Ordinarily with rawhide you should stretch it out so that you get as much material as possible and so that it dries as quickly as possible without rotting. Notice the difference in thickness here between the center scale and those around it. That center scale was made from one of the edges that didn't get stretched. Because of how much thicker it was incredibly difficult to cut out. I've got a theory for how it should be constructed, that I haven't tested yet admittedly. Maybe the scales should be cut out when the hide is still fresh and wet, and then placed on a flat rock to dry in the sun without stretching. Whatever the case, scale is a good way to get multiple thicknesses of material while still being flexible. On to the test, warbow first. The first lesson I learned is not to do this sort of video on very windy days. The first 10 minutes of shooting did not yield any hits.
Finally!
The antler arrow struck the rawhide, made a little hole, and bounced off. It just barely got through the leather underneath it. I'd call that a success.
Okay, what did we get this time?
The steel arrow struck the leather but not the rawhide. It penetrated very deeply. The antler arrow struck the leather but not the rawhide. It penetrated about an inch. The antler arrow struck the rawhide and bounced off. It made a big dent, but it didn't penetrate. There was no damage to the leather underneath. The steel-tipped arrow struck the rawhide where it was double thickness. It penetrated the first layer and stuck in the second. This arrow missed the target but exploded anyway. This goes to show that all arrows have a lifespan. The steel arrow struck the rawhide where it was only one thickness, and it penetrated the whole armor by about a half an inch. Let's move on and try the knife. The armor absorbed this blow nicely. A good downward blow had almost no effect on it. Upward blows had a good chance of avoiding the rawhide, at least partially. Anything except the upward blows had no chance of getting through. Manufacturing them proves that they are indeed able to be cut, so let's try the sword. Some deep scoring, but none of the scales were cut. This blow wasn't very good and it failed to do any damage at all. Again, nothing significant. Another good solid blow that manages to score the scales but still not cut them. Try a two-handed blow. Still no real damage. Here's Johnny. The axe failed to do any significant damage. However, because the scale armor is so flexible, it folds in on itself when struck by a heavy blow. It should be noted that this is not some cheap Canadian Tire axe that's been sitting in a basement for 20 years. This is a good quality blade and I keep it sharp enough to shave with. As such, I'm very impressed that the scales refused to be cut. The spear is just a formality at this point. It struck where there was only one scale and it penetrated about 5 inches. The spear struck where there were 2 scales and it still penetrated about 5 inches, however this time the spear was badly bent. No matter, it's an easy enough fix. I'll show you how to do it. You just put it against your knee and bend it back into place. Double check that it's good, and there, good as new. So having done these tests, I think I finally understand this sort of armor. I think the real benefit of scale armor is not simply overlap or flexibility. I think it's the fact that each and every one of these scales hangs loose. This means that when struck by an arrow, the scale can move and take the force out of the arrow. The same holds true for a sword cut. This comes at the cost of leaving it vulnerable to upward thrusts and to blunt force. That's all I have to say about that, so thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Goodbye.